pat a fine white horse.
So one of the things that this song does is introduce us to the character of Martha. Now, Martha actually has a bigger role in the musical than she does in the book. Which is not to say that she's not important in the book. She's very important in the book, but she doesn't have as big a role in the book as she does in the musical. But her role at this point in the musical is basically the same as her role in the book, and that is to introduce some levity to this particular story. Every song leading up to this point has been very dismal, has had a very dark tone, and just overall has not been very cheerful. This is the first actually cheerful song that we hear, and it is also in many ways the first hopeful song that we hear. Because that's one of the things that Martha does. She introduces hope into this kind of hopeless story. That's one of Martha's jobs. It's also one of Dickon's jobs, but we haven't met Dickon yet, so at the moment, that's Martha's job. Martha is also the cheerful face that Mary meets. Up to this point, she hasn't met any cheerful faces. She's met Neville Craven and she's met Mrs. Metlock. And neither of them have been particularly cheerful to her, and really not very helpful to her either. I mean, Mrs. Metlock provided plenty of exposition, but she's definitely not what you would call cheerful. So Martha gives us this levity. She gives us this hope that she will embody throughout the entire musical. And another thing that Martha does that's important is that she mentions the secret garden. She's really the first character to mention that this garden actually exists. We heard it kind of mentioned in the beginning, and of course Archibald and Mary dreamt about it, maybe, in the previous song, but Martha is the first one to really mention that this garden does in fact exist. And it's a very offhand mention. You can almost believe that she's making it up. Because she's making up most of this song. She's talking about a variety of things that she could have, that if she had them, then she would allow Mary to play with them, but of course she doesn't have them. Because she starts talking about the garden as if it is an actual place. It actually kind of turns a little serious, but then she mentions again the fine white horse that she mentioned at the beginning of the song. The fine white horse that doesn't actually exist. So she mentions the garden, and she once again gets this idea of the secret garden into our heads. So that's all for, well, technically last week's song, so tune in later in the week for this week's song. See you then.
Then come and tell